Hey, so in today's video, we're going to start something a little bit new. We're just going to go through the Gospel of John. And you can feel free to comment. You can ask questions if you'd like, and I'd love to answer them. But essentially, we're just going to go verse by verse and really just try to get the understanding of what is the Gospel of John and how do we study it. So just follow along with me as I study, and I'll let you know what verses we're on, and I'll put the verses on the screen too. So first off, before we get into the Gospel of John, we really need to know just a couple things. Number one, who is John? And, traditionally we believe that John wrote this Gospel based on how it was written. He refers to himself as the disciple Jesus loved, which we know is John. And we do believe that John the Apostle wrote the Gospel of John for various different reasons, but I won't get into that. That's something that you can look up for yourself. This is not John the Baptist. There are some people that think, John's Gospel is John the Baptist. Well, John the Baptist died within Jesus' ministry. John the Apostle did not. It was written about 90 A.D., and John was he also wrote Revelation, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd John, and he was exiled on the island of Patmos. So he was one of the disciples that was really close to Jesus. He was one of the top three, Peter, James, John. He was there on the Mount of Transfiguration, so he's got quite a bit of detail. The way this gospel is laid out, you can tell it's a very separate work from the other three gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke. So here we go. I'm just going to jump into the Word, going to start reading, and then we'll discuss through these 5 verses. So look with me in John chapter 1, starting in verse 1. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things came into being through him, and apart from him nothing came into being that has come into being. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness did not understand it. So the first thing that we see here is he says, in the beginning. Now, John, Jewish guy, okay, he's definitely going to know the first 5 books of the Old Testament. Genesis, obviously, where it says, in the beginning, God. And it says he created the heavens and the earth, and then let there be light. Okay, so our concept as human beings, finite creatures, what I mean by finite, I'm saying that we have a beginning and we have an end. Every piece of material in the universe that we know of has a beginning and an end. This is our entire concept of existence. We don't understand the infinite. We require beginning and end. Now, just a second ago, I said everything in existence has a beginning and an end from our perspective. There's one obvious exception to this, and that's God. Follow with me, and I'll explain why God does not have a beginning or an end. God is outside of the creation. Here's just a little simple analogy that you could sort of use to understand. Now, again, I've talked about analogies before. Don't take them too far. You can obviously take any analogy too far and rip the thing apart. It's basically an example to help you understand. Think about a computer program. A computer program cannot fathom the computer programmer, okay? If a computer program went to search for the creator, the programmer, and he searched everywhere that they could search, which is the computer, there's no way they'll ever find the creator. Now, forget the whole, we have choice and programs can't and blah, blah, blah. Forget that. Just follow along with me. Just like the computer program can't fathom the computer programmer, we have a hard time fathoming our creator, the infinite, okay? So this is outside of our reality. So time, space matters. So think of the entire universe. God is outside of that universe. Therefore, we should not try to fit God within our reality. So when we look at the Big Bang, everybody gets to the same point. Well, where did that little bit of matter come from? Where did the bang come from? Where did God come from? Okay, here's the thing. Trying to say that matter came from nothing doesn't make sense. But a being outside of what we know as time, space, and matter, outside of that kind of knowledge? Yeah, okay. That doesn't have to have a beginning. Everything else has to be created because that's part of the universe. God is not a part of the universe. He is above it. He is outside of it. But he can interact with it. All right, so that's the beginning. And it's a reference back to Genesis, this concept of reality as we know it. And then he says, the beginning, there was the Word. Now, what is that word exactly? What's the first words that we hear, I guess, or know about, I should say? And that would be, let there be light. Our first concept of God is Word. He spoke. We cannot perceive God. Remember, God is invisible, okay? This Word is the only physical representation that we have of God. It's the only kind of concept that we can conjure in our finite brains. We don't have any sort of understanding outside of what God has revealed to us or allowed us to understand. Back to the computer analogy. The computer turns on, that's the beginning. Obviously, that's not the beginning. That's the beginning as the program understands it. But as far as the creator, it's really not. But from our perception, it is. So another little phrase that I like to use, instead of saying in the beginning, in our understanding of existence, God created, right? Okay. So that's sort of the way I like to look at this. And then you look further on, it says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. So the Word, whatever this word is, it's God. And in the beginning with God. So it's always been in existence. All things came into being through him. Now, the first obvious thing is all things were created by this Word. But then John personifies the Word by giving it a label, him. And we're going to see exactly what the word is here in just a second. What exactly is the Word? He says everything that exists comes from the Word. The Word is life, and life was the light of men. The light shining in the darkness is what it says. Now, look at this concept of light in the darkness. And it says the darkness did not comprehend it. The darkness fears the light. Okay? It can't handle it. Think about it. If I pitch black room and I shine that light, everybody's going to see that light. That's what we're going to see. It's a physical reality. Darkness is the absence of light. And God, speaking into existence, he says, let there be light. Let's back up just for a second. When we look at, God said, let there be light. And I was like, well, the sun, moon, and stars weren't created till the fourth day. Well, so that's our concept of light, but that's not the light that God was talking about, but what John's talking about right now. Even in the darkness, our eyes search for light so that we can see. This is a physical reality. So what exactly is the Word? Because it doesn't quite tell us in verses 1 through 5. And honestly, up until verse 14, it doesn't really tell you exactly what the Word is. But when you check out verse 14, which we'll get to here in another video, it says that the Word became flesh. And that flesh is Jesus. John is explaining the deity of Jesus. Understand something. John is writing this several years, a few decades after Jesus died on the cross. So what exactly do we know about God? Well, not very much at all. We only know a finite amount of details. John's explanation is incredibly profound. We just don't know a lot about God. But what we do know about him, we know Jesus. Some of the issues that Muslim and Judaism have with Jesus is it's like we're calling him another God other than the Father. And while I believe that there's separate persons of God, he's still the same thing. And honestly, it's really just our perception of who God is, which is Jesus. God allowed that to happen. He made him flesh incarnate. So I'm going to read this one more time, and I just want to pay attention to all those things. In the beginning, our concept of existence was the Word. And the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He says he's God. He was with God in the beginning. Like, how many times can you say the same thing? He wants to make it clear. All things came into being through him, and apart from him, nothing came into being that has come into being. Basically, the simple answer, God is Jesus, and Jesus created everything. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness did not comprehend it. As we read through John, we're going to find that, Jesus came to his people. God incarnate came to his people, and they didn't receive him. He was not the Messiah that they were expecting. And we'll look at that here in the coming weeks. Thanks for joining.